Well, welcome back to another Share Your Story. We have today Paul Black, another one of our elders, coming and speaking with us. So very excited to have him joining us and excited to learn a little bit more about his story. So let's jump right in, Paul, and just tell us a little bit about what it was like for you growing up here and what you did, and just share a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I was born in Springfield, Missouri, so very much a local boy. And my family lived in North Springfield on Howard Street, just north of Kearney. And this is not from memory because they moved away from there when I was probably a toddler. But I thought it was interesting that our next door neighbors were Everett and Holly Delo.
Oh, wow.
And their daughter, Sue, and of course their little boy, Frank.
Wow.
And so, let's see, while I was still a toddler, as I said, we moved from that location a little ways to the south and some to the east. And but the Delos were members of North National Church of Christ, as my family was. And so it sort of starts out combining history with church. But
Yeah.
that just brings to mind, so many things, do I remember not being part of the church? No, I do not remember it all. And I can't even imagine, that because that was from the very beginning. As far as my family, I was the middle son of three boys. My oldest brother was over 6 years older than me.
Okay.
My younger brother was about 5.5 years younger than me.
Wow. So big age gap between all of you guys.
Age gap, they say that when there's that kind of age gap, you're really all like only children. And so that kind of reflects maybe how you interact with people. I'm not sure about that, but it was different. I remember interacting, playing with my older brother a lot, and younger brother too, but not in the same way that if you were just 2 or 3 years apart.
Yeah.
I had neighbored friends my age. I guess my family moved to another location that was on East Atlantic, which wasn't very far from, and it was also just as close to North National.
Oh, really?
It was just on the other side.
Just the opposite end.
Opposite end of the area that maybe included a lot of the members there. But I had neighbor friends my age. In fact, just to say something about the neighborhood I lived in, it was I consider a nice neighborhood. It was probably started in the 1930s or 40s, and it had paved streets for most of the streets. It had a paved sidewalk on both sides, and there was a neighborhood grade school that was 3 blocks away.
There you go. Everything you needed.
Everything you could possibly want as a young boy. And my mother was a stay-at-home mother. As I went to elementary school, which was Springfield public school, but the name was Pepperdine. And probably named after the same person that the university is named after. I tell people I'm a graduate of Pepperdine, and then I say, not that Pepperdine,
Just the street.
But it was a nice neighborhood. I had 2 friends just across the street from me that were both in one grade ahead of me. But they were my friends that I played with so much, because we were the same age and had all the same interest. I guess for fun when I was young, I was always building things. I remember one time building, you might call it like a soapbox derby car. And very proud of that, and me and my neighbor, we found enough wagon wheels that we could supply it with wheels, and we pushed that thing all around the neighborhood.
So for our younger audience that might not know exactly what a soapbox derby car is, can you describe that?
Well, they actually were cars that they ran down a ramp and had sort of races. These were a little bit similar, but we didn't do that at all. We just pushed it around, just like you would in a wagon. But it was different. Mine had fins on it because there was a piece of lumber that looked like a fin. So I did that, and I've duplicated it on the other sides.
That's awesome.
But the main thing was my playing always included building something. And
which kind of led, it seems like, directly into
yes.
your future a little bit.
Yeah, when everybody else was thinking about pitching the ball in softball, I was thinking about making a exact duplicate of the home plate. So my mind was always somewhere else besides on the sport.
Yeah.
It was always on building something or making something more technical. You've mentioned maybe talking about things that you did to have fun. It's kind of odd, but probably one of the things that was most fun to me when I was growing up was on my maternal grandmother's family. She had 16 grandchildren.
Wow.
So therefore, there were 16 of us cousins.
Yeah.
And on Sunday after church, it seemed like almost every Sunday we would drive. My family would drive to the other side of Marshville, and there was a big family meal. And most of those 16 cousins were there.
Wow.
We played and played, and the 8 aunts, they were all inside talking, and we would come and go, and there was always popcorn, and it was just, I know that's a little unusual, especially nowadays, that a family would be so close like that.
Well, and as many as you had to all be getting together regularly is abnormal for a lot of families.
I think so. It's certainly, our family has not been like that. Our grandchildren have been farther away, so they haven't been able to come so often. But that was just something that was very unusual. And even today, there's not 16 of us still left, but we still get together once a year for a picnic somewhere in Springfield.
That's awesome.
Or Marshville. And the church, going back to the church, that was such a big part of my growing up. My dad was a deacon there, as I remember. My mom was one of the Bible school teachers. And I know we have our children at Union Hill that are members of the 27 Club and the 39 Club, and it wasn't exactly that, but my mom made sure that I learned my books of the Bible, you know, and I was always a good student in my class because she was a good teacher at home. The church there seemed like a fairly large church. There were lots of young families and kids, and a lot of memories of Bible lessons. They had the latest technology. They had the flannel boards and the little character that you stuck to the flannel boards, so.
That was ahead of its time for a while.
That was it. And I remember all those, and I could recognize every one of them just by looking at them,
You knew which flannel person was going to be the story for the day.
Absolutely. There were a lot of kids my age. There were some big kids there, too, like, for instance, Arthur Voiles. He was one of the big kids, John Wilson, who was a professor at Pepperdine, I believe.
Okay.
They were all there at North National, and I remember Vacation Bible School. It was a big event. I mean, all the kids were there. A lot of neighborhood kids were there. A lot of Kool-Aid and cookies.
Oh, yeah.
It was a big event for the summer. Life just revolved around church and the events there. The ladies all got together and quilted quilts. And, of course, the kids did play and got into trouble and did various things. So I guess another memory about North National is the leaders there and some of the ministers. They were beginning the ministry, I guess you would call it, of Happy Hollow Bible Camp and Orphans Home. This was all started and something that the elders were very, very much enthused about and talked about a great deal. And I remember in the early 50s and as a preteen, I was excited about these ministries. However, I must say that I never did go to a Bible camp.
Oh, really?
And I never did go. Well, the thing is that as a preteen, my dad looked at these things, the Bible camps, maybe the orphans' homes, and some other things, maybe even colleges, of the fellowship, as being something that was sort of non-biblical and maybe beyond the scope of the mission of the church. I guess he was convinced that it was not technically correct to do some of these things. And it was hard for me. I remember that we were very active at North National. In fact, my family did the janitorial work there at the church. And for my help, I got $1 a week. And my older brother got $2 a week because he was, do more work.
Yeah.
But we were very involved. And however, at that early age, my dad started taking us, we started visiting around to different churches, looking maybe to find where they weren't as involved in things like the Bible camp and that sort of thing. And we ended up, I remember we went some to East Grand. We visit there on Sunday night. My family never missed a service. We were always there every time.
The doors were open, you were there.
We were always there. If we went to Marshfield, we were always back for the PM service. It was just, we wouldn't even think about anything else. But eventually, we ended up at the church on the corner of Cherokee and Willard. There's still a church building there. I'm not sure if they're very active or not, but that's where we ended up. And I guess for a youngster like me, it was a little bit traumatic to lose contact with many of my church friends. Besides Frank Delo, there were so many others that they were just all part of my weekly life and Bible school, vacation Bible school, and all these things.
And so when your family decided to make that transition, was there ever like a conversation about it, or was it just Dad decided, hey, we were going to find a new church that we're going to go to?
Well, there was some conversation about it. I know he got his brother, Joe Black, which most everybody knows. His brother, he was an artist and a sign painter, and got him to draw up something to demonstrate his feelings about how it was something added on, something that maybe should not be. I guess I wasn't too much included, but I remember on my $1 a week salary at that time that I contributed $5 to some cause. I can't even remember exactly what it was. And I was surprised to find out that if there's any doubt about those things,
And so you were a preteen at this point when you guys transitioned to a new church?
Definitely a preteen. This was about the time I was beginning to start junior high.
Okay.
Oscar Ellison was a preacher. He had pretty well been part of the plant of that church. I think that church was sort of a plant off of South National.
Okay.
Some different ideas. I'm sure he was also not. He didn't feel like that a lot of the new things like the camps and the orphans' homes were really something that the church should be at least directly involved in. It should be more done as families or as individuals. So I guess there was made some sense of that. I say I was baptized when I was 16 years old by Oscar Ellison. He had stopped preaching, at least temporarily at that time, and they hired a preacher. I guess I knew that several my age had been baptized, and maybe there were some whisperings that, those kids don't really know what they're doing, And but anyway, my dad finally asked me about being baptized, and I was ready to go. I was so glad and ready to go, and I was convinced. And
kind of the group you were around were getting baptized around your age, but then was that kind of people were saying it was too young to get baptized and they didn't know enough?
They sort of felt like, there's whispering. So it was almost like maybe you needed permission,
Oh, okay.
And that sort of thing. But anyway, that was something that I was baptized early on and certainly was enthused and I'm very glad to be so. Might say that I knew what all the tracts said about the Baptists or the denominations, and I was very much an evangelist. I would talk to these students about this, about different things, about why we didn't celebrate Christmas and why we didn't have instrumental music and things like that. I was out there evangelizing that sort of thing, and maybe I've had a little bit of change of thought since then, but that was certainly in line with my bringing up, that was something very important.
So it might be jumping ahead too much, but you said like that's not really the mindset you have now versus the upbringing that you had of very conservative, kind of not being involved. And so what led from that growing up and upbringing and mindset of, we got to evangelize to all these other people that are doing it the wrong way, to now, what would your mindset be and what led about that transition?
That was a long period of time, that I began later on as, at Southside in the early years there. It was a church where there was a lot of love. There was, it was close, but, there was some difference in the ideas about ministries. However, I began to bring up things, about, why are we so hard on people who celebrate Christmas in the traditional way? Shouldn't it be more of an opportunity to talk about Jesus and his birth and whatever they're interested in that time? Or if it's around Easter, why don't we just take that opportunity? And that I began to really think on those terms, why did we intentionally separate ourselves from people? I know that in the public schools, some of my teachers very memorable. I remember one in particular. She was a member of the First Baptist Church. She not only taught fourth grade, she taught Sunday school at her church. And she talked to us about things too. She was so careful when there was going to be a black person be bussed into our school district. She talked to us, I don't know how long, about being accepting of another person of another race. We were all lily white there in that neighborhood, I guess I couldn't help but respect, godly ladies like that, those dear ladies that were just trying their best to bring these children up. And there was no question about a public school teacher being able to do that in a classroom, you know. And so I grew up with a lot of godly people, and many of them were Baptist. There were so many in that area. And as later on, I'd hear people talk about certain people that, they're just about the worst, And I said, I grew up with them, and they were good people, And so I began to really recognize that, the things that Jesus stressed the most, the love, these things, are something that we didn't have a monopoly on, Sure, we should have that. But yes, I did begin to develop. Finally, it was to the point that, I became a song leader fairly well, probably in college before I actually, Whittlesey was his last name, Harold Whittlesey. I don't know if he was taught song leading. He came around, and I was one of his students, and so I really caught on and really enjoyed that. And so I led singing a lot when I was in college age, and young adulthood. I was, a needed song leader. And it was just something that eventually, when I started having ideas that were a little bit not in conformance with the non-institutional, that's what it came to be called. Later on, it was non-institutional. That I was sort of limited a little bit, and maybe I shouldn't be teaching too much or too much involved, but, I can lead singing all you want, that sort of thing. So I began to slip out of the mainstream of the non-institutional church.
And so just to kind of clarify that transition of, you were hearing these things about, oh, that person does that or that church is that, but you were having interactions with members of those church, teachers, and you're like, these are godly people. Like, these are people that are loving and following what Jesus needs. And so that's not lining up necessarily with everything that I have been told growing up. And so that led to your own questions and studies and kind of a difference of thought of how can we talk bad about these people, but then I had this teacher that was just loving and taught acceptance and showed us what that looks like in a day-to-day life. And so those things were not lining up in your life. And so that led to that kind of the new path you started going down. Would that be correct?
That would be correct. That was part of my development as a young adult. Sort of go back, I did have Well, it's South Side. It was later called South Side. Cherokee and Weller was South Side. Oscar, sort of hung it up temporarily as a preacher, and they hired a preacher, and the preacher came in, and he was very enthusiastic. And I guess we didn't call it a youth group, but he was sort of like a youth leader, youth minister there.
The pre-youth minister.
That sort of thing. And, he started, having parties, at families, and getting the youth kind of excited and interacting with one another. And somehow, I'm not quite sure how this, but the elders and Oscar was there, and they tried to tone that down a bit. And eventually, I think I'm not sure if they fired him or he decided to leave. But when that happened, there were so many families there that appreciated that kind of enthusiastic, youth-centered preacher that a lot of them left too. I guess, so that's the second time that I kind of lost contact with a lot of people in the church. And like, for instance, the Moore family, and they left, and some other families did too. So that was just another difficult time for me, and something hard for me to understand, that how we could be losing those people.
For sure. Over something that seemed exciting and brought energy in, but then also making that connection of, as you said, this is the second time that you've kind of had that, not split, but you guys left your first church for reasons, and then now there are other people leaving the church you were at that you appreciated their fellowship and their families. And so that's a difficult thing to go through, a lot of transitions.
It is.
Growing up as a Christian and in the church, but to still see like that separation over a difference in thought.
It is. My very first friend that I had was a preacher's son. He was a month younger than me. We were so close. We were just best friends. And to this day, when the password calls for your best childhood friend,
he's your answer.
He's my answer. I don't know if I would be his answer or not. I haven't seen him. I lost contact. My point is that preacher. He was an up-and-coming preacher, of North National. This is way back early in North National. But they went to New Clovis, New Mexico, Wichita Falls, Texas. And but that was just one of those things that, unintentional, of course. The preachers, very accepted that preachers would move up, and I'm sure he did very well. But for some young kids, it was a little rough. And I see here we have Steve. He's been here all these years. His kids got to grow up one place, and the other kids didn't lose those kids, so I don't know what the lesson is there, but it does have an effect. I know what the effect could be on young kids like that.
Yeah, just a lot of transitions and that missing out of, you said the best friend moved away and you left the Delos early on, but still it's cool that you're able to reconnect with them here at Union Hill. But yeah, that is hard when churches split over reasons that are not necessarily.
Yeah, well, it wasn't even split, it was just sort of the preachers moving up the ladder and going in different places and thinking that they shouldn't be somewhere more than 3 or 4 years. And when I was a junior in high school, kind of jumping ahead a little bit, there was a new family that came to the South Side there, Cherokee and Weller. And after a lot of families that had left there, this was a Jones family. And so they had, their oldest daughter was Terry. They were very comfortable there. Her mom and dad were very comfortable there at South Side. And I took note of this new girl. She was pretty. She was smart. She was all these things. So just these things happen. Going on, I wasn't real quick to be overly social to young girls at that time. But kind of a slow learner. He's kind of a slow mover.
Too busy building other things and
Something else. Anyway, I guess during that time, there was a preacher that came to Southside. There was several came and went, and one of them was Harry Pickup Jr. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he was his dad. I think was very involved with Florida College. Which I don't know if you know what Florida College is. Mm-mm. It's a of the non-institutional church, it was the one college institution that was okay.
Okay.
And I think it was because I always thought it was because the church didn't contribute to the college.
Mm.
And so I was kind of surprised when I became part of the mainstream church again, that the church didn't have all the colleges on their budgets, and supported them,
Yeah.
I guess Florida College was supported by the people and families. And anyway, Harry Pickup Jr. was very dynamic, probably a little bit like that church, that preacher they fired. But it was he was doing it as not part of, but associated with Florida College, which is the non-institutional college or institution I would throw in there. So, but he was dynamic and he did a lot with the young people, but that was okay. Things had changed a little bit by then, and he had several children, which it brought in some new children to that church. So that was during the time that Jerry and I were in high school and maybe starting college in that age. So we had a lot of memories of youth being together and doing things again. But it had to happen after some changes.
Yeah. So it took some time to bring about kind of that idea again that it's okay to have someone come in and put energy into the youth and start doing things together as a youth group was what we would call it now.
Yeah. I was probably careful not to call it a youth group at that time.
We're not going to put a name on it.
Yeah, it was. It had to be family, and kind of not at the church building either.
Okay.
That was another thing about they didn't eat in the church building.
Okay.
And because of. In 1 Corinthians, there was a warning about them abusing, and so that was the reason why he didn't eat. But that's the way it was, and so that wasn't too bad. We could still get together in restaurants and homes.
You just had to make sure there's the stipulation of it's not going to be at the building.
Not at the building.
But we're okay going to other places.
Any park was okay.
Okay.
All those things were okay. I guess that kind of brings me to toward the my college days. And so when I went to UMR, University of Missouri Rolla, but can't remember the name right now.
That's
the new
all right.
name, it has a new name. We have students going there already. But anyway, I went there for engineering school, and I guess I was never encouraged to go to a college of the fellowship, not even Florida College, because but from my studies and from my scores, they all said, you probably need to do something like engineering, and with scores and other things, not so much, So anyway, I ended up going to Rolla. While I was in Rolla, if I was there on the weekends, I attended St. James Church of Christ there. Not the one at Rolla, because there was at least one or two in Rolla, but they were more mainline church. So I was consistent with the way I've been brought up in the later years. But, St. James was a very loving church. I remember the very warm hospitality that they extended to me, a college student away from home. And they were familiar with the UMR students being there. Mm-hmm. And I remember especially the Luther Martin family. They just took me in, and took me to dinner, and just they had a big family, and he was sort of a circuit preacher, and but I could never think of anything negative about that. But they were, I guess, non-institutional in many ways. And the Marshall Sewell family, same thing. They just treated me like part of their family. So, and they would pick me up for the first year. I had no car. They would pick me up every time and take me to church.
So even when you were away at college, still felt like you had a close church family that was keeping you in and welcoming, and never felt like you were by yourself.
And there was never any division that I could tell or any disagreement. I guess it was just pretty well a settled issue there. And so that was no problem. Let's see. I guess it's hard to know how to jump around in my life, but I guess kind of jumping ahead. I did because my service, my life in the service, came in there, and in Vietnam, I was there for 7 months, and for the first 4 months, I was kind of out in the boonies. There wasn't much available. It was a very small post, and I was on duty half the time. Every other Sunday, I was on duty for 24 hours. Every other Sunday, I was off duty for 24 hours. But I know when I finally got relieved from that duty and sent down to big city Da Nang, first thing that I noticed, there was a chaplain meeting going to happen there. So I showed up. This little chaplain meeting, there was probably only 3 of us. But I guess my point is Vietnam was such a disruption to my life. And it was a disruption to my life of being at church every time there was opportunity. And so it meant so much. This was a chaplain. I don't know if it was posted as a Protestant chaplain meeting, how it was posted, but I was there. We talked about Jesus. We took communion together. It meant so much. That's something that, in the midst of a big negative, a big disruption, there are things that maybe you never forget that mean so much. That just how that happens, and remember that. I always appreciate. Ever since, I've had an opportunity to be a part of a church. And it maybe wasn't always the happiest opportunity, but at least there was the opportunity.
Yeah, to grow up in church, going with your upbringing of every time the doors are open, we're going to church, to then be shipped to Vietnam where there's not that opportunity would be a huge disruption in how you grew up. So then to find a place of like, okay, every other Sunday I'm off. Here's a place that I can come and we can talk about Jesus. We can take communion, which was so important for you, and being able to hold on to, even though that was a big negative, as you said, there was that positive aspect of, and even like I appreciate even more now. I'm assuming once you got back from Vietnam, man, I appreciate the church family even more and the opportunities that we have to come together.
Yes, and when I got back from Vietnam, Terry, she'd already rented a house, and I thought I was going to go back to work and work for the highway department, or MoDOT, it was called by then, and be a highway engineer for my career. And so I reported into MoDOT, and they said, well, we don't need anybody in the Springfield district. But we do in Jefferson City, we do in another district, and Terry and I both knew that we really wanted to settle down in Springfield.
Yeah.
So that became the end of my highway engineering career. And so I worked briefly for one of the members there at church, and then I stopped by Hoodrich Architects and Engineers one day and walked in there and said, here I am, here's my resume. I wondered if you needed any engineers work. And they said, when can you start?
There you go.
And so I did start right away. And it's really odd how Terry rented a house that was 2 blocks away from their office. So I walked to work for a while in that house. So that started my career of being more of the structural engineer rather than the highway. That's all under civil engineering, but it was a changing thing. It's something then, and just to jump ahead, did that for 42 years.
Wow.
And I did enjoy that. It was rewarding. I didn't know at the time, but that come to be known as architectural engineering. There's a couple of parts, but.
And all that led because you and Terry wanted to stay here in Springfield.
Yes, and we weren't ready. I couldn't imagine asking her to move away because she had, I guess, jumping back a little bit to the fact that when I graduated from Rolla, I graduated in January of 1970, and I had taken ROTC Advanced because I didn't know if I'd be able to finish my engineering degree before I would get drafted at the Vietnam era. And so I had signed up for Advanced and went through the program. And so we got married in January, but by May, I had to report to active duty. And I was a second lieutenant at that time, been commissioned. And so I took off to Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and to do the basic training course for officers that are newly reporting to active duty. And Terry was finishing up her teaching degree at Missouri State at that time. She was a year behind me in school. And I remember writing, I found a letter recently I wrote to my parents, about Fort Belvoir, the Washington, D.C. area, basically. And I said in my letter, I said, you guys ought to come out here. There's so much stuff to see, because they'd never been there before. And I said, in a very small area, you can just see so many things. I didn't have a chance to do much because I was reporting.
You were in training, yeah.
So, well, when Terry graduated from Missouri State, my parents, along with my younger brother, Roger, decided they needed to do that Washington, D.C. trip. So they brought Terry out there to me and dropped her off. And so we lived there at Alexandria, Virginia, right on the Potomac River. I lived with some guys in a rented apartment, for a few months while I was out there. When she got out there, I rented this apartment in a high-rise right on the Potomac.
Wow.
The per diem rate was something like $300 a month. That's 3 times what our apartment was in Springfield.
I'm sure.
But so I rented this apartment out there that was a high-rise. It was beautiful, right on the Potomac.
Yeah.
And it was over $400 a month.
And at that time, that would be...
That was something else. But anyway, we enjoyed it. She was a full-time tourist. She I had to report to duty every day, and she drove the old Challenger to places in that area, or rode the buses.
Yeah.
And so she could be a tour guide for Washington, D.C.
She got to explore everywhere. Yeah. So just to kind of jump ahead some to kind of bring us to how you found Union Hill, you were out doing training, then you came back and stayed in Springfield to work here because it was a priority. And so growing up in kind of the non-institutional church, what led you to be here at Union Hill, which would be very much a more mainstream Church of Christ?
Yes. Well, again, that's kind of a long story. We went to Fort Leonard from there for 9 months, and then went to Vietnam, come back, like you say. And so we went to Southside, Cherokee and Willer. And we were there for years, until about 94.
Okay.
And I guess, again, I wasn't totally sold on the non-institutional idea, but it was a very loving church. A lot of good people there. Differences weren't emphasized, even though I knew that it was limited in some of the things that they did and were involved in. I guess, again, another traumatic thing happened. We had their family moved in from Kansas City, and they were from the non-institutional church there. He became an elder. His son became the preacher. All of a sudden, there was a whole different brand of non-institutional church. And there was a young couple that he was the son of the church preacher that had been there before. And that young couple decided they would move to a church, I think Stratford, somewhere like in that area, a mainline church. So they decided, well, that's a really bad thing. And so they publicly withdrew fellowship from that young family that had left for another church. That was not only me, but some of the kids that I'd grown up with. There were several that we had grown up together with.
Yeah.
It's like, and other new people to come in. This doesn't square with anything we basically know about the basic Christianity. And so suddenly we realized that we were young adults. We were in our 30s. We got to talk about this.
Yeah.
So we did talk about it. The elders and the preacher that in time said, they talked pretty rough to us, And so we realized that we needed to leave. We needed to do something else. So we actually moved to the Walnut Lawn Church of Christ, which was kind of a plant off of Southside.
Okay.
And they welcomed us with open arms. They said, yeah, that doesn't make sense, withdrawing fellowship because they went to a mainline church, and it's like, let's think about this distinction, what it means, what's important. So we were there for a while until our newfound doubts about the non-institutional church, still non-institutional, began to come through. And so we finally, it wasn't a big deal, but we finally said, well, some of the young man that was preaching, very gifted, he wouldn't preach with all the right points, to confirm non-institutional leanings. So many of us were sort of excluded from the duties that we felt like as young adults we really needed to move on.
Yeah.
So we did. We moved on. I think we maybe met in our home the first time. We met at schools, we met at storefronts, we met various places. I don't know if we had a name. We met for a few years, actually, at a shopping center on South Campbell. And I guess finally, at some point, maybe some of the passing of some of the leaders at the Walnut Lawn, the people just came to us and said, won't you guys come back? We said, we'd be happy to come back, but you know about us, and you know that we can't just blend in. We want you guys back, your family. We've grown up with you, and older people, younger people. So we went back.
Okay.
And we were back there. We, I think we did quite a few good things. We did a lot of evangelizing in the neighborhood. We were more free to follow our Christianity as we really believed it. We added some classrooms and a baptistry to that small building during that time.
Wow.
And we were it was a good time. We felt like we were doing well. I guess to get to the answer to your question, during that time, Terry's dad had passed away. Her mom had moved to Nixa, of all places, and rented an apartment. And so she was, of course, checking on her. She was getting aged. And I was an elder there. In fact, I guess in our practice, we were, we didn't have a paid preacher. It was because we couldn't pay a paid preacher. And we were sort of picked up by the mutual edification group, and say they call themselves missionaries, from Kansas City. We looked just right to them, and they would do some preaching and teaching for us. Very good people. Yeah. And during that time, I was ordained as an elder, along with two others, by them. Seemed pretty scriptural to me, like a Timothy or someone. And we never could get them to accept any money for preaching. And we never could convince them that we just too poor. So we finally did hire a preacher. So we were kind of moving on, and seemed like we were, doing the Lord's work there as a small church. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of us that had been together for a long time, from early childhood even. I guess finally it became a point. There was some teaching that you might call it pretty liberal, that Terry and I began to have a little problem with, because once you start really thinking, people start going, they really start taking on their own version. We were far from being non-institutional at that point. Mm-hmm. And Terry was needing to be. She would come to Union Hill because to get her mom here and be with her, and I was still back there as an elder. So we finally decided that I had to explain that I was never really part of this experiment. Of starting a new church. I had a problem with all the other churches, congregations around. It was just that it was kind of a way that we stayed together. And so we said our goodbyes on that day. And I remember the exact day and that PM we were here at the Union Hill. I guess, just to drop back a little bit, we would... occasionally, we were going to church in Springfield, and we lived in Nixa, and so we'd have snowstorms. So one snowy morning, we were starting off to I guess, Walnut Lawn Church, and we got up here somewhere around the warehouse in Nixa, and we decided, I don't think we need to go on any further. We need to just stop. Let's just drop in on these, and we knew several people. Yeah. There already.
I mean, growing up in the Springfield area, already have connections.
Yes, we did camping and traveling with people from South National, and some of the people that were at Union Hill then. So we dropped in on them that snowy morning. They were very warmly accepted, and so there was no doubt that we never had any doubts or problems about being a part of a church like Union Hill. Yeah. But anyway, we finally said our goodbyes there. We were here and been here ever since.
So it just took some time to come to that realization. Even though there's some progress that you saw that was beneficial and you saw as biblical, still kind of held back in a sense of like, there's still things that are going on here that we don't fully agree with still. Would that be correct?
Yeah, and like I say, it was more that they had progressed to the point, the ones of us that are leaders, more of the progression of nothing I totally disagreed with or anything, but along the way, I had young families. They were part of our small church. Mm-hmm. They would come to me, and I remember one family in particular, they said, boy, our boys are getting to be teenagers. I wish they could be part of a bigger youth group, We're thinking about maybe going to Sunset. And I said, you have my total blessing to do that. I wish my children had grown up in that environment. So I was able, to show them that you're not forsaking us.
Yeah.
We don't consider that at all. And we understand completely. Our Sherry and David, our children, they did get to go to summer camps finally.
Yeah.
But these were summer camps put on by Florida College, not by the local church or anything. So, odd distinction, that I never really understood, but...
So just that wanting to have more connections with the other churches around.
I always encouraged us when we were a small church or meeting, especially when we were meeting in homes and things. I said, let's take Sunday night and go. Let's just all go together.
Yeah.
To a church. Just pick up one of the area churches and go there, And we did it a few times. We were always warmly accepted, But it wasn't everybody's idea of the thing to do. But it was always my idea. I kind of want to get back to where I was at North National.
Yeah.
That never left my mind, all that time.
So this desire to come back to kind of what you had when you were early in childhood, to be a part of a church that is kind of doing things and participating, and finally making that distinction of with Terry's mom being in Nixa and knowing people here at Union Hill to say, okay, this is something that we need to just officially do and get back to a church family that we feel like is doing the Lord's work and connected with others around as well.
To this day, that's another group that we don't see often. And it hurts. For me, it hurts. And it's more because we left them to come to Union Hill. We enjoy seeing them occasionally. It just hurts me that, people have to part ways.
Yeah.
For when it wasn't totally necessary. I mean, it hurts to have to go to Vietnam, but at least it wasn't a decision, and it just hurts me anytime I have that decision. So it hurts anytime I lose fellowship with people. I guess it's just something that is important to me. And, as far as the Union Hill and what I would like to see us grow more in, I would like to see us grow more in the closeness of a large family. We are a large family. We're a large family, and sometimes we feel like we like to get here. If we're sort of a second service family, but we like to get here before first service is over. And to have that connection there, because it is a large group. And I would like to see us have a closer connection some way. It's so wonderful that we have this beautiful facility here, and we have a kitchen, and we have a fellowship room. And we can turn the main auditorium into a fellowship room pretty easy.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. I'm so glad that there's no hesitation about using what we have to increase that fellowship among the family. The only thing that I would say is that sort of from my early days, where maybe all the fellowship was in people's homes, I would like to see us have more of that in people's homes.
Yeah.
Not because they did anything wrong
Yeah.
with doing that in the church building, but just there's a reason to maybe just two families together in one of their homes, And it's just like we're sitting here with a conversation, And the good thing about that is it's more of a guided conversation. We can delve deeper into topics. So just two families occasionally in a home could really delve deeper.
Yeah. Because there is something about being together in people's homes and like hosting. I think is like the spiritual gift of
Yes.
being welcoming and hosting people. And as we do grow, like Union Hill is a bigger church now, like over 400 people, pretty consistently, and with 2 different services, it is hard to have that connected fellowship when, oh, you've been coming here for 3 years. Well, I go to second service and you go to first service, and we don't go to the same Bible class. So there are people that are members here at our church that might have never met each other. And so to be able to find ways to bring about, as you said, growing that connection and that fellowship to be a family is important to have, and making that a priority for people. As you said, like you and Terry, usually go to the second service, but you get here in time to see and talk to people here at first service, because that is a priority for you guys, which is a great example of, I think, of a really practical way to help build up connection and fellowship. But then also, man, people used to get together all the time in homes, and you have a history of meeting in homes and that being a priority. And as you said, like, not because now I think it's wrong to meet together at the church. We love our kitchen and the fellowship hall and eating together, but there is something special about just being with a couple families together outside of the church building to have that fellowship and that connection and just feeling closer to one another. I know Lisa and I, anytime we have people into our homes, I feel closer to those people afterwards. And then when I see them on a Sunday or a Wednesday night, and it's like I immediately can go over and have a conversation with them and feel like I know them better than just the 5-minute passing period that we had in between class and worship.
Yeah, we do have the men's fellowship meals lunch, and the ladies have theirs, that is a good opportunity to have a closer, more intimate conversation, which I've recently done that, with members. But still, it's when you're and just there's only 2 families there, you can have time to delve more deeply into it, like you say, and that is important. And that's somehow, well, we were involved in the small groups from the beginning. We were a smaller group, met in our home. We were an older group. Now, we had gotten together and we did a lot of pre-COVID. We would play games, in our homes and things like that. We enjoyed it very much, and I missed that. It was, I did a lot of the teaching for that small group, and it would have been good for others to be more involved in that. But still, that wasn't that small a group. It was several families together.
Yeah.
So, and when we get together for our meals, that's a even smaller group. That's pretty small, but still, doesn't quite take the place of the in-home. So that's something that maybe we could emphasize more. And I mean, it's work. Like when we were having the small groups in our home, wasn't so much for me, but Terry did a lot of work. Just sort of host that many people, and we would. They would bring food, and we should have food, and it was a good thing, but it was work.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Hosting is work. But I think as like one of the important things that I was thinking about as you were speaking is we have I know there are a lot of families that might not feel as connected here at church as they would like to. Because it is for whatever reason, whether it's big or just new to the family, or maybe you've been here for years, but you only come for service and leave. The way to overcome that is by putting in some work and inviting. And if you are feeling that feeling of needing connection, that might be the Spirit of God saying, hey, invite people to be connected, and take that work on yourself, not expecting everyone else to invite you in, because I think everyone longs for connection. And so if you're feeling that need, okay, take that feeling and do something with it. Serve someone else by inviting them into your home, and then you have a connection with someone when you come to church, and it facilitates growth deeper into faith and serving other people that are needing that same thing. So if you're listening and feel that need of connection, use that to invite someone in and make them feel welcome. Don't wait for Paul or myself or whoever else here at church to be the ones to do it, but maybe God put that on your own heart to be able to bring someone else in that needs that connection as well.
Yes, I agree, and then the category of things that I love about this church. There's so many things. I think all the ministries, and I don't get involved in so many ministries that I should be involved with. Terry's come up here all the time for those ministries, and one thing that I really love is the fall camp out, because camping out, call it camping, but that's something we've done a lot of. Mm-hmm. We've done it on a family level with our grandchildren, and I've talked all this time and I haven't even talked about our grandchildren. We have 5 grandsons, and all 5 of those have gone camping with Grammy and Grandpa. And they have a lot of memories of that. We have a lot of memories of that. That's so important. And whenever we go to the fall camp out, there are a lot of memories there every time. Now, there's a lot of us there. So it's not, there may be some time when you're sitting beside the campfire, it's just one family or one group or one person or something like that. A lot of times there's more involved. But all those things are, I think, so important that we cultivate those and help us draw closer together. And if someone says that, they just don't feel close to anyone, well, sometimes it's because they don't make enough effort, but not everyone has the facilities to go camping. And that's a difficult problem. We're close to a lot of members of the church beyond Union Hill because we went camping with them. Unfortunately, some of those have passed away now, but those memories will never go away. The times that we camped together, the times that we had campfires at night, the times when someone was broke down on the road, and we knew that there's no problem. They could, someone would go get whatever they needed and bring it back and stay with them till they got fixed or change the tire for them, and that sort of thing. So all those things I think can really bring people together, and so I love it that we do cultivate these things here.
Yeah, Union Hill creates opportunity to fellowship with one another. Yes. And as you said, the Fall Family Camp Out is a special place in my heart. It was the first weekend that I was hired here was the Fall Family Camp Out. And so the first interaction I had with the church was at the weekend camp out. Which was great until you called me out in washers and called my toe over the line and lost the game because of it. I'm not still bitter about it at all. But it is one of those things of just seeing people outside of the church building and just having those campfire conversations, or as you're painting rocks or whatever the craft was that year, of just playing games with each other. I know Scott and I have played tent ball, where it was just a made-up game where we were hitting a ball on top of the tent, and it became a thing that he texted me the other week, be like, are we playing tent ball at the camp out this coming weekend? Is there going to be a tent? Where there's just those memories of connections with people that you make for outside the building that I think Union Hill does a beautiful job at. And if you haven't gone, not to use this as a plug for the camp out weekend, but go to the camp out weekend. Those are the experiences that bring connection and love and make a family out of a church. It's not sitting in the pew and listening to Steve. It's coming and being a part of and learning about people is what brings that family atmosphere.
Yeah, I remember the first camp out we went to. Mark Broadway and I were washer partners, in the men's division, and we won it, and so that was very fun.
All those memories to be able to have together. Well, Paul, I appreciate you coming and speaking about your life and how you've grown up, and really just taking this time to share your testimony and how God has transformed you and used you here at Union Hill. And Union Hill would not be the same without your leadership. And so I really appreciate the amount of time that you serve and spend here, with the scholarship that you've taken a lot of time for to bless kids being able to help with college. I know that has a special place in your heart, but really just the idea of connection and fellowship and bringing that to Union Hill and making that a part of your leadership and shepherding our church here. So thank you so much for everything that you do and how you have blessed our congregation.
Well, thanks for the kind words, and we certainly do feel blessed to be here, and we just look forward to our time here, and I hope that we can spend out the rest of our days here.
Well, we would love that. So thank you guys for listening, and until next time, God bless.